Welcome to our webinar, our second webinar. My name is Rita Bhandari. I'm Senior Manager for the Congress Program at Ertico ITS Europe. And today we're very pleased to welcome you to our second webinar in our series of 3, which is a series that is designed to give you some information and a preview to our program in the run-up to the ITS World Congress in Dubai. So as most of you know already, the 30th ITS World Congress will be held this year from the 16th to the 20th of September in Dubai. You can find more details on the website itsworldcongress.com. And this is the first time we are having this Congress outside of Europe in the wider EMEA region that is also under, comes under our World Congress cooperation. So this is what you can look forward to. We are expecting about 15 to 20,000 international participants. The exhibition space itself is around 15,000 square meters. The total area is about 20,000 square meters. With the program, the exhibitions, and the demonstrations all under one roof. We are hoping to have about 500 exhibitors and 175 technical sessions with international forums, plenary sessions, and a very important Future of Mobility Summit. And we will also have plenty of social networking opportunities, including a VIP and ITS dinner. So this is the venue that we spoke about, the Dubai World Trade Center, where everything will happen. The program overview for the 5 days has been up online for a while now. And now you also have the day-to-day overview. So you know exactly at what time which session takes place. And if some of you have given in your contributions, you will know exactly when you are presenting or when you are when you need to attend. So please do make your travel arrangements. If you would like to be part of the Congress, we have a number of opportunities to engage in through partner packages, which will allow you an avenue for thought leadership, lead generation, brand exposure and advertising, and of course, community building and networking. So very quickly, just a very quick reminder, our deadline for the early bird registrations ends on the 15th of June. So please do hurry up. And you also have our third webinar to look forward to. Please do stay engaged with us and join us through our social channels, our digital channels, our website, sign up for our newsletter, and also follow us on LinkedIn. The program for today is what most of you are here for, to give you an overview of some of the content that you will see at the Congress. What are the important themes? Who are the important players? Who are the important, really people, the thought leaders, and the people driving this sector that you will meet at the Congress? Our moderator for the day is my colleague, Jean-Charles, who is a senior manager of Clean Mobility. And then he will introduce the panel later, so I'll just move on through that. Just a few house rules. Most of you will know by now that all attendees are in listen-only mode. You have the opportunity to follow this webinar afterwards through the recording, which will be shared through our channels. There will be an article coming up and published on our website and sent through the newsletter, so please do follow that. And if you want to ask questions about the panel discussion, please feel free to use the Q&A window to do that. So without any delay, I'd like to present to you my colleague, Jean-Charles Pandasis, who will take over and introduce the panel. Thank you, Jean-Charles.
Yes, good afternoon. It's my pleasure to moderate this panel. And that's true that clean eco-mobility is high on the agenda of the ITS World Congress, as for everyone. Currently, many solutions and initiatives are developed for reducing carbon emissions and transportation impact on the environment. But the question is how we will achieve our environmental target. Will our solution bring the expected benefit? We will address some of these challenges with a panel of eminent speakers from different sectors and regions. As you have seen in the agenda of today, we will have Adel Shakri, Director of Planning and Business Development from the Public Transport Agency, from the RTA in UAE, and he is representing somehow the public transport sector. Then Eric van Fulpen, Deputy Director for the Center for Technology in Fusion at the Trobe University in Australia, representing the R&D innovation in mobility, I would say. Then Leslie Richards, who is a CEO and General Manager of the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transport Authorities as public transport operator. Axel Folkery, Deputy Head of Unit Sustainable and Intelligent Transport from the European Commission DG Move in Belgium. And finally, from Turkey, Emre Kinav and Alikan Yimsal, Emre Kinav being from Ford Otosan, an OEM, and Alikan Yilmaz from BeamUps, a startup company also building electric vehicles. So now the first who will start is, did you change the order of the slide? So it means it is Eric van Fulpen.
Good morning.
So please, Eric, this is your turn. And as a format of this discussion, normally each speaker has maximum 7 minutes, and hopefully we get at the end about 15 minutes for discussion. The question will be asked at the end. First, a question related to the presentation, and then some general question. So Eric, please, your turn.
Oh, thank you very much, and thank you very much for coming.
We don't hear you,
everyone.
You're muted, I guess.
No,
I'm not I hear you. Sorry. Let's go.
So thank you for coming, everyone. My name is Eric van Vulpen. So as mentioned, I work for La Trobe University. I work for an R&D center. We are very active in the transport sector, normally with engineering projects in the CITS environment, which we have been doing for the past 10 years. At the moment, we are working on the world's largest connected motorcycle project. And the past 4 years, we have been focusing on technology and how technology can make public transport more accessible. So working with people with disability, the government asked us, can you have a look at the accessibility of EV charging stations? Because the government in Australia, the market is a bit behind, has the highest penetration of V6 youths, as we call them here. The market for large cars is very big, and for electronic vehicles penetration is very low compared to other countries. The government is a bit behind, so that also doesn't help. But they've now launched their vision, and their vision has been very clear, and it is about supply, systems, and demand. And the next slide, they have outcomes, and one of these outcomes is to make sure that it's very easy to charge an EV across Australia. And the way we look at this is if the hardest case can use it, then it's easy for everyone. So if people with disability can use it, then it's easy for everyone. And that's not a given, right? So at the moment, the market is quite, there's new players. It's, in a way, it's a cowboy market where a lot of energy is built. Everybody is trying to gain market share. Many EV charging stations are being built with no cost to council. And that means that if the council doesn't have to pay for it, it's great. So they can say, okay, we've built 40 charging stations, but they have very little say in how that is being built and whether that is going to be accessible for people with disability. So in one of the larger councils, they've built a charging station straight in front of the very prestigious council building, but it's on a hill. So definitely is not accessible for people in a wheelchair. So next slide. So that's why the government has asked, can you work and collect a new guideline for accessibility that makes sure that it is accessible. And there are existing guidelines. So you have in England, in America, and Sweden, Germany, you have these guidelines. And we have studied them very carefully, and we are using a lot of materials. And most of the time, these charging, electronic charging guidelines, they are about the space you have to park, and they are about the accessibility of the equipment. We have taken a slightly different approach, and that may be of interest to the people that are visiting here, is that we've taken an end-user driven approach from start to finish, a process driven. So somebody, as you know, that accessibility is as good as the weakest link. So if you're a person with disability and you try to, it's not just about what happens at the charging station, it's also what happens before that and after that. And we've tried to capture that. So we've investigated what the major barriers are in each phase of the charging, and it starts at home. So it starts at, okay, I need to charge, I'm going for a trip, I need to find out where I need to recharge, because most of the time the trips are around the home and the charging is at home. But if people need to make a longer trip, then they need to charge. So where can they do it? So except for relying, hold on, I'm not there yet. So except for relying on other guidelines in Germany and other countries, we also did, of course, our own research, and we found that if you call the EV charging companies, some are really, really good and some are really not that good. And it's difficult to find where a charging station is actually accessible with a wheelchair. So that means it's very hard to plan your trip. And then you need to drive to the charger, and there's barriers in that, in sense of what's the distance between one and the other. The parking is many times overlooked. Very often a charging station will be kind of taken or will be busy, and that means you need to wait first. So is the parking around that, is that accessible? And if you need to go take a toilet break from the car waiting to charge, can you move around the side, or can you buy something? Is it safe? Is it well lit? So we've investigated all of these barriers, not just about the charging and the paying, but also before and after. And we've put this in a document that if you're interested in reading that, the next slide, please. You can simply Google iMove Australia, LZEV charging, and you will find our consultation document. We have widely distributed that within the industry and within governments and with operators. And at the moment we are collating feedback and analyzing the feedback. And so far we have gotten very good feedback, especially from the disability community, to say, okay, you're actually addressing the whole issue, and you're looking at it from an end user point of view. And that means it's a little bit bringing that all together takes a team of people, not just the operator, not just the equipment, not just the council, but they all need to collaborate in order to then deliver that end user experience. And I think that what makes this approach a little bit different from the guidelines that are at the moment existing. So please, if you have interest, go have a look. It can be downloaded, and we'll be very keen to hear your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. So as we said before, the question will be asked after all presentations. We now go to Leslie. from SEPTA.
Thank
Hello,
you.
Leslie, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks, Jean-Charles. First of all, thanks for having us here. At SEPTA, we're making every effort to reduce our impact on the natural environment and contribute to healthy communities, as well as our workforce, and ensure economic vitality for years to come. We're promoting sustainable transportation practices on a global scale and to create more livable cities. So I just want to explain for those of you who don't know about SEPTA. First of all, please note that we're about 1.5 hours south of New York City, about 3 hours north of Washington, D.C. We're the 6th largest transit system in the United States, over 9,000 employees with a budget of just over $2.5 billion. And we provide 700,000 daily trips on our service every day. So next slide, please. Our vision is a 7-year plan for SEPTA to maximize the sustainability on business practices, systems, equipment, and facilities. Here you can see our sustainability matrix. Our goals are in many cases consistent with the UN goals, which include wide-ranging and ambitious interconnected goals. This matrix shows where our initiatives are against our internal goals as well as the UN goals. As you can see, we still have a lot of work to do, but we are making progress. And it does show that we have clear objective and benchmarks to ensure how we continue. I wanted to briefly just touch on our solar program, and that is our electricity from our power grid. We currently pull, obviously, from the power grid, and because of this, we're working to add more renewables to the grid and reduce our impact. Here you can see where we have a community solar farm that we partner with, and I do believe we may be the only, but definitely one of a few U.S. transportation authorities that have this type of partnership. And this installation equals to about 20% of our electricity use system-wide. Next slide, please. We also have some rooftop installations, and we continue to explore opportunities to develop additional solar farms as well as other uses for solar energy. Next slide, please. I wanted to spend a little time, the next 4 slides, on our zero emission goals. So buses are a huge part of how we serve our ridership. So in order for SEPTA to reach our sustainability goals in tandem with our service goals, we've committed to a full transition of our bus fleet to all zero emission buses by the year 2040. And we have 8 main bus districts, a fleet of over 1,400 buses, and this will be a major undertaking for us. We've conducted several other pilots we're looking at as well to be able to make data-informed and driven decisions about the most effective way to go about this goal. One of our pilots involves our newest diesel hybrids. They have the capacity to go into electric mode when entering a geofenced area. And to pilot the technology, we have prioritized locations that were identified as environmental justice areas, as well as areas around schools and hospitals, so we can impact those communities who have been most impacted in the past. So currently we have 31 miles or nearly 50 kilometers of geofenced areas in this pilot, and we're closely measuring the pilot to see if it has the anticipated outcomes that we're hoping to see. Next slide, please. As part of another pilot program, SEPTA purchased 10 hydrogen buses, and they're arriving this year. The pilot measures the viability of expanding hydrogen buses by looking at how they perform on our routes, as well as the market availability of green hydrogen for reduced emissions, while considering equitable deployment. Next slide, please. While we suspect that our bus fleet will include a combination of battery electric buses and fuel cell electric buses, we are really just beginning our zero emission bus journey, and we're continuing to learn a lot about what we don't know through investigation, conversations like this one, and also through pilot programs like the ones I've already mentioned. Next slide, please. We anticipate that several other pilots down the road, including a one-to-one comparison of 60-foot battery electric buses and fuel cell electric buses, and retrofitting 12 buses to battery electric platforms, will help us with our information and analysis to develop our strategy moving forward. And then our next slide, please. Again, I just wanted to briefly cover our energy resilience. It's an important issue. We keep examining it, and we are working to diversify our energy sources and making them renewable. So through solar, expanding to electric vehicles, hydrogen as an option, and even energy generation through combined heat and power, we just continue to make sure that we're looking at what else can we do and work on to make our energy use renewable. Next slide. Again, just briefly, reduce and reuse waste. I know many of you are all familiar with this. I just wanted to give two examples, and that is how we're recycling the plastic barriers on our buses. These are shields that protect our operators. They weigh approximately 500 to 600 pounds per pallet, and we recycle them 3 to 4 times a year for an average weight of 15,000 pounds per pickup. Another unique thing that we do is for our electric hybrid bus batteries. So last year, 23,040 electric hybrid bus batteries were recycled, and that totaled approximately 82,800 pounds of diverted waste as part of the bids and quotes asset recovery and reclamation process. So my last slide, next slide, and last slide, I just wanted to provide these program highlights. So we continue to seek a deeper understanding of how to build a sustainable, efficient, and dynamic system that is supported by innovative infrastructure and that also makes the most sense for the needs of our region. And it's only through universal collaboration and commitment to change that we can ensure a greener future for our communities and our world and our partners who are on this call with us. So we really thank you for your attention today. We look forward to the questions at the end of the presentations. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Leslie. So now we will switch to the next speaker from the Commission. Axel Volkeri will provide the European Commission view on this topic. So Axel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jean-Charles, and hello everyone, and it's a pleasure to be with you, and thanks for the invitation. Can we move to the next slide, please, and then directly to the next slide? Indeed, happy to give you an overview of the European perspective here. First of all, it goes without saying that the transport sector is extremely important, contributing around 5% to European GDP, employing more than 10 million people. But the emission reductions remain a key challenge. We are now representing about 27% of the entire European greenhouse gas emissions. And it is a bit problematic that these emissions are 19% higher than in the 1990s. So transport is a sector where we have still a growth in emissions. And at the other hand, you might have seen that the EU has committed to a legally binding target of becoming climate neutral in 2050 with European climate law. And if you translate this into emission reductions for transport, we have to reduce emissions by 80% by 2040 to contribute to that. So that is really a very big task ahead. And Jean-Charles, you were asking, how do we achieve this target? And I think when you look at the European approach, we will have sort of a double-edged approach. It is clear that we need to shift to a completely new power base in transport with zero and low emission powertrains with renewable and low carbon fuels. But we also have to really improve the way we're using the existing capacity in the transport system. So really making use of efficient multimodal transport, making really use of the potential of digitalization of intelligent transport systems. And we have seen some good progress here under the last years. But of course, it is clear that when we look ahead to 2030 and beyond, we need to have a much more and massive increase in action. So just to give you a few numbers, if you look, for example, into the uptake of zero emission vehicles, and let's look at battery electric vehicles, we had around 4.7 million at the end of 2023. When we look into our assessment modeling for 2030, we see a need for having at least 30 million battery electric cars, only cars on the road. And then, of course, also a strong increase in the registrations of vans, of buses, of trucks. I mean, making a link here to Leslie's presentation, we had already a third of all urban bus registrations in the EU now being basically zero emission, predominantly battery electric, also a few hydrogen fuel cell electrics. But without, only with the sort of push for zero emission vehicles, we will not get to these needed emission reductions. So it is clear that we have to massively strengthen rail transport, and we have to accelerate decarbonization of aviation and maritime transport. And here, in view of the maturity of different technologies, it is clear that we have to rely on low carbon and renewable transport fuels for the years to come. So what have we done in the EU? We've done a very comprehensive overhaul of all the important climate, energy, and transport policies under this mandate. I will speak to you about in a second what the main pillars are. And of course, the priorities for the next mandate of the Commission. You know that we are in a year of European Parliament elections, and the new Commission forming is, of course, clear implementation of this policy framework, but also further development towards a better harmonized data infrastructure so that we can better make use of the different use cases across these sectors. If you go to the next slide, please. This was really our big package, which was presented in 2021 and is now, for most parts, in place. And it is important to note that we need to combine different instruments in the policy instrument mix. So we don't have the one thing that solves everything. Key component was the extension of pricing signals. The EU has completed sort of a full internal market for emissions trading, with extension of emissions trading to maritime, road transport, in buildings. We are still seeking to conclude work on getting to a energy taxation framework. We have massively pushed the mandate for the uptake of renewable energies, and here also for renewable transport fuels, where we doubled the ambition for 2030, also looking into a much stronger impulse for using energy efficiency. And then, of course, and that has been also a lot of attention to it, very strict performance standards, particularly for new cars and vans, where we have a target for 2035, which equals to 100% emission reductions, which in practice means that as of 2035, you will only be able to register zero emission cars, which includes, and vans, which includes battery electric, hydrogen fuel cell electric, hydrogen combustion. And the Commission is also working on an approach to see if cars that completely run on renewable e-fuels could be registered. All of this backed up by provisions for sufficient infrastructure for recharging and refueling those vehicles. We are the first continent to have sort of a regulation in place setting binding deployment targets for such infrastructure to the member states, and then also ambitious requirements for the uptake of sustainable aviation fuels with our Refuel EU Aviation regulation, and cleaner maritime fuels for the maritime sector. If you go to the next slide. As said, the first one was particularly the shift to a new power base and emission reduction, but this also comes with having to use much better the infrastructure that we have at hand. We just revised our TEN-T network guidelines. This is basically the transport infrastructure in the EU. So all the major transport arteries, which are together forming our TEN-T network, which we now have made sort of future-proof and robust. So for use of alternative fuels vehicles, massive upgrade of rail, full sort of speed ahead with digitalization, but then also since we are sort of with Artico here in an intelligent transport system context, of course, revision of the Intelligent Transport System Directive, starting with really working on making data better available so that we can get to better data mobility services. To the next slide, please. All of this is, of course, and one should not ignore that fact. It's not that we can regulate our way. I mean, this is really a massive piece of policy programming, which will also come with a significant investment tag. Here, there has been a lot of action to channel available budgetary support to this twin transition of decarbonization and digitalization. We have a huge fund with the Recovery and Resilient Facility, over 700 billion, which we are using up to 37% to fight the climate change. We have other instruments ensuring that this transition is just, that we consider into social aspects, that particularly low and income households and enterprises that are vulnerable to transport poverty can be supported in this transition. So just saying that, you know, that to make aware that you have to sort of really combine the policy instruments with the financial levers. Last slide, please. And just leaving with you some of the challenges. And that's, of course, we have to get to not only affordable zero-emission vehicles, but also available zero-emission vehicles in all segments of the market, particularly in the smaller segments of the vehicle markets. We have to dramatically and quickly scale up renewable and low-carbon fuels, and it takes time to build these infrastructures. We see that while we have a market-driven rollout in many parts already of recharging and refueling infrastructure, we need to work on electricity grids. Access here is a key challenge. And so it really comes to sort of an extended role for the public hand to de-risk investment and also improve planning and permitting procedures. And I think what will be a key challenge, which will now come, is that we look better into the possibility of digitalization, of optimization of transport systems, including ITS, and simply making data work. So with that, back to you, Jean-Charles.
Thank you very much, Axel. I hope we'll have some time to discuss all what we heard today. Now it's the turn of Emrah Kina from Ford Otosan with Alikan Yilmaz from BIMOPS.
Hello, thank you. Thank you, Jean-Charles. Alican is also online. We have prepared the presentation together, so with Ford Otosan and BIMOPS together. Thank you very much. So I will make the presentation. Basically, today we are navigating around the challenges of clean and eco-mobility caused mainly by the urban population, so basically by us, which is increasing every day. We highlight the challenges faced for the urban electrification, both from the infrastructure and life and habits point of view. And at the end of the presentation, we will bring on the table the solution, our suggestion of light and mini vehicles for goods and people moving, an infancy period suggestion to grow to mainstream transport vehicles for clean urban private mobility. Next slide, please. So basically, today world population is 8 billion. More than half of it is living in the cities. So we are all living in cities, in urban areas. And this will grow to over 80% by end of the century. So more people, more cars, which means more roads and more parking spaces. So that's a problem for the urban city planning, which is a problem for mobility planning. So only in Europe, for only between 2023 and 25, it means 10 million additional vehicles to go on traffic. And let's not forget that the vehicles, our cars, are 95% of the time they are parked. So just try to keep these in mind. As OEMs and vehicle designers, mobility planners, we are working hard for advancements in technology to increase the efficiency of our current vehicles. and as well as the fuel and energy choice of the vehicles to be more sustainable and cleaner. That is today electrification and hydrogen. And hydrogen is basically fuel cell and internal combustion engine powered 100% by hydrogen. These are the mainstream technologies that goes for greening the fleets of road vehicles. And autonomous driving, on the other hand, have the potential to also, in addition to the per vehicle advancements, autonomous vehicle driving also has the potential to increase the efficiencies of the fleets, so the whole fleets. But at the end, whatever fuel choice or energy choice we have, the congestion is still there, unfortunately. Next slide, please. For electrification, as we said, is the mainstream greenification together with hydrogen, but we have an infrastructure issue as well. That is lack of enough and well-balanced EV charging stations everywhere. So when we look at Europe, we have a ambitious CO2 reduction targets, and that can only be reached with the mass market adoption of electric vehicles in everywhere. So not only parts of Europe, but all Europe. And this will not happen without a widespread public charging infrastructure everywhere. So just by numbers, right now we have around 600,000 charging stations in Europe. That is 150,000 of them just installed last year. That is 3,000 per week around. But according to the European Commission's reports, we see that we need 3.5 million until 2030, and that is 8,000. That makes 8,000 charging stations per week. It's about 3 times of last year. And according to ASEA numbers, that is 8.8 million charging stations, which is 8 times of last year. So those are the challenges we have. Well, we don't have one size fits all solution. That's clear. No silver bullet either. So perhaps we may have some suggestions or some kind of new changes that we need to make our world in a better place, starting from ourselves. And we suggest a new mobility concept, let's say mini mobility, which is less energy consumption per kilometer, which brings less energy consumption per kilometer, which makes it more eco-friendly and sustainable, more affordable to buy and operate, easy parking due to small footprints, most importantly maybe less congestion due to small size, and requires much less energy. So basically, due to the much less energy needs during the charging, perhaps we can have much less charging infrastructure issues. But what is the challenges for mini mobility? What we see is the safety or the feeling of safety against normal cars. Together with Ertico, with the coordination of Ertico, as for Totosan and BMOBS, we are also inside a consortium of developing the frugal zero-emission vehicle family of Europe. So that is basically our new Horizon Europe project, ZEVAP. And here we are aiming for developing the clean, highly efficient, sustainable, and affordable urban mobility for private mobility. This vehicle family, both for the passenger and goods transportation, and for the passenger transportation, we are aiming first born to be shared vehicle. So basically, we are developing the shared vehicle platform for Europe. Jean-Charles, I think I made it on time. Thank you very much. Hope to see you all in Dubai.
Yes, very good. Indeed, you kept your time as the other, I think, so far. Now we have the last presentation. This is from Adel Shakri, who is the Director of Planning and Business Development at ATA. Yes, okay, I've seen that you have many slides, right? So you still, as the other, will have about 8 minutes to present. So I hope you can make it. We are interested to see what you are saying now. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I promise, inshallah, we'll do it within less than 8 minutes also.
Perfect.
So just few about, just we will start about the Global Electric Mobility Readiness Index. Today, the UAE is probably 7 out of top 10 country worldwide. And this is the source based on other little research, last research. So it's based on the GEMX tools. GEMX tools consists it have 5 different tools like a macro factor, EV market and competitive landscape, the customer readiness and public charging infrastructure, and even the government regulation, how the government supporting and regulating the EV vision. And this is based on it. It became GEMX, and the UAE ranks third worldwide for EV readiness. Okay, for the EV readiness for the public infrastructure. So as we said, if we go to the GEMX index, we position number 7. We had many different. We are good in macro and market. Maybe a little bit you have challenge in the charging and the customer. But how we are working and how we improving this to attract more to move toward the EV. Okay. So innovation of technology, if we ask ourselves, I think that the 3 main technology are driving the growth of EV. The battery technology, number 1. Second thing, the autonomous driving and wireless charging. And anyway, I think the battery technology is the most important technology to drive the EV. As you are aware, I don't know if you're aware, it's driven by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid vision, Dubai 2040 Master Plan and Net Zero Plan 2040, the directive of Sovereign Council of Energy introducing 10% of any new procurement of bus will be electric or hybrid. And this is the RTA net emission public transportation. It has a lot of things. One of the things we are focusing by 2050 to have the zero emission public buses, and by 2040 for the taxi and limo. Maybe we have a good result for the taxi and limo. We have a little bit challenging in the bus. And this is how our plan be cascaded up to 2050 to reach our target to become 100% in the different sector. As you said, in the taxi, it will be inshallah reaching by 2040. Now we are almost 12, almost, it's almost 12%. But as you see, it's still, we have a challenge for the public, but our new tender, we are buying 40 electrical bus for the new to be at the service by end of this year or beginning of next year. Next. Said we have our for the current state of the EV, as said, we are vehicle availability, we have incentives, especially we started at the beginning to waive the SALIC tax cost. We have allocated different parking. Now we have a lot of charging station, but we need to increase it to improve and move the taxi sector, especially one of the main challenge today for the taxi sector, the number of charging stations. So I said our incentives past, it was like exempt electrical vehicle from parking fee, provide discount for registration and renewal. But now we have exemption from one time for the SALIC card. The SALIC is called the toll tariff, and allocation parking space for environmentally friendly electrical vehicle. So this is our strategy, how to start from trial to proof of concept and understanding. And as I said, for the bus, we did a lot of trial for the bus, but unfortunately the challenge and the weather was challenging here. But recently we had a great result with a different company, and with that we purchased 40 buses of our new procurement. And this is the trial which we had different trial over the year. Starting from the e-bus, design line, many different things, and even we did with the different part of the world, different from China, from Germany, many different buses, and we had the challenge and advantage and disadvantage in each one. Next. And the trial is going on. The trial is going on, and I think if we can say there are 4 main challenges in EV adoption. If clear strategy, which already working on, we have it clear. The funding is a little bit challenge, but we take a serious action and bought 40 buses, part of our new fleet procurement. The charging infrastructure, I think we need different business model to come and to enhance and increase number of charging infrastructure and maturity gap, especially in the GCC and the Gulf region. Now, my question to you, it's webinar, but usually I'm asking how many people using EV vehicles. And my second question to you, next please. What is your biggest challenge? What is your biggest challenge? Next. So at the end, as we said, the adoption for the family car. What is the challenge for the family car? We have the home-based charging, cost, lack of charging infrastructure, and range. The range is very important. Next, I think we have one of the main things we need to focus for the next few years, the public-private partnership, especially with the energy companies, how to come and build a new business model to support all the stakeholders. Conclusion, our outlook for the future, I think the obstacle we have to overcome the cost, infrastructure, policy support, and we have to have opportunity like renewable energy, local production, private investment, and we have to focus in the MENA region. It has its different own characters and to improve it differently. And thank you. At the end, I would like to thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And indeed, you kept the time. Very good. Okay, so thank you all for all the speakers for your presentation that were quite complimentary, I would say. And the first thing, as we said, that we will do is to look at the Q&A, but I don't see any question. There are? Oh, why do I don't see that? Okay. Yes. What? So to what extent does the UAE climate affect the efficiency of EV and battery life? What can be done to reduce the impact of extreme climate on EVs? Okay. So I guess this is for our last speaker to answer. I'm not sure. We don't hear you. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think in order to have a kind of a discussion with the speakers, what I would like to do is that somehow we had different perspectives that were presented. The policy with the EC, with the ramp-up challenge, in particular, for example, public transport operation. So many type of vehicles driven by different energy solutions. This is another topic. Then the mobility challenge from the industry with new solution and mini mobility, for example. reducing also the need of energy, but questioning also the infrastructure, the accessibility for for charging, but maybe also for accessing these new type of vehicles. So I would like that we concentrate on two things. The first thing will be the challenge of the multi-type of vehicle. We see, all the buses, the different type of buses. It means that you need different skill maybe to drive those buses, but also different way to to organize the fueling of these vehicles. Hydrogen or electric. It means with respect to your big network that you have, it's a challenge also logistic and how to organize all this, right? This is one thing. And then we will address more the EVs. But first, I would like that we talk briefly about this topic. So maybe Leslie, you want to say something on this, and after you, maybe also Adele will add something on it.
Sure. So look, we're thinking about that. I did in my presentation just allude to that. We're at the beginning of this, right? We're still looking into it. But we know that the training needs, our workforce needs with the different technologies are something that we're going to have to figure out. We know the battery electric buses require a group of employees that obviously specialize in electrical equipment, and we're going to need that skill set as well as how to operate and maintain the fueling equipment for electric, and then also hydrogen is going to be different on that fueling equipment. So our current contracts for the new technology do include the language for employee training. We talk about bus maintenance, how we use the trainer structure when we train there. And then our training group is also going to learn from the vehicle manufacturers, right? We're going to have to figure out how to best train our employees, work together with them. And we're setting up that similar structure in that division. So, we're looking into it. I'm eager to hear what the other panelists are saying. I know that it's been a challenge.
I see that as a huge effort. This is because you said you released your last diesel bus, right? Mm-hmm. So it means that all your driver needs to learn these new buses, right? That's the point. Okay.
Everybody, yeah, and maybe all the different routes and everything. Yeah. Yes.
Maybe Adele, you want to add something on your side?
Okay, this is what you said about, correct me if I understand the question correctly, about increasing and enhancing number of the station EV. I think one of the main challenge here and the investment model and the business model between the provider and the stakeholder. I'm going to give you an example. One of the main challenge, a lot of taxi or limo company, they don't want to move to EV. One of the main reasons they don't have enough EV charging station in prime location, especially for the taxi and for limo. And to have this, we need to increase number of public budget. We need to increase number of charging station, but this is not. No one is coming to take bear the cost.
Okay.
I think one of the great model is to come with a different business model, partner between the energy company, limo company, and government supporting by the land or something, and came new business model to support all the stakeholder.
But what I see now, if I can jump to the other side of the topic, maybe, is that we have now on the market, many different type of energy that is available. We have alternative fuels as well. We have a hybrid vehicle, fuel cell vehicle, battery only vehicle. I think if you are a normal driver, you are lost in what to choose, and you don't know if what you will choose will really be the solution that will last for you at least. Many people are keeping vehicles for 10 years, right? So what do you do? Do you go for a plan of 2 years, or do we change model? Do we just rent vehicles? And I don't know. This is something that is a questioning. And what we see now in Europe, very, very recent thing, is that the numbers. So we were talking about the ramping up ramping up, right? The EV adoption, but the numbers are dropping. Not much, but they begin to drop, right? Why? Because people think that battery is not environmental friendly. They want to keep the range is not good. The vehicles are too expensive. And the question is also, we see that the Chinese are coming now with very new vehicles that are very cheap, right? So the US yesterday decided, no, we put 100% taxes on those vehicles, so they double the price. So in Europe, what do we do? This is also this aspect. I mean, I think as a driver, for me, I'm waiting, right? I'm lost. So maybe from the Commission, maybe something, maybe EMRA after that.
Yes, let me first, maybe one point on the previous topic on the buses,
Sure.
just to note, because we have such a long history now in the EU and quite a good learning insights. I think for all the communities we have in the EU, it's by now relatively easy, for example, to electrify one line or two lines. Where the challenges come is when you go to really full fleet transition. And one of the key, so there are 2 points which are challenging. One is sort of the full conversion of your depot, where you have issues around space in urban areas, which is sort of constrained, and also the cost. And then I think it was also in the presentation of Mr. Shakiri, you have issues of balancing your capex and your opex in a new business model. But I think these are not insurmountable challenges. I mean, we see quite a lot of communities in the EU who have made very ambitious planning and are already on quite a strong pathway. But I think what we learn is indeed it requires a much longer term planning exercise, which involves energy, which involves urban planning. And so it's not a transport thing only, it's a transport, energy and housing aspect. And I think on your last point, Jean-Charles, if I may, I think yes and no. I see things a little bit yes like you, but also no. First of all, I think we still have quite a strong increase in registration in zero emission vehicles in the EU. I think where we are now in the market is that actually we're coming to segments of the market where people buy sort of smaller cars, and these cars are not yet available. So of course nobody, we don't have that many people who say I'll pay 80,000 for a Mercedes or a Tesla or whatever. I mean, and that is I think where we are in the next sort of growth phase. And the vehicles are coming into the market. We now have, for example, the R5 from Renault. We have other things. And once these are better established, we will also see again sort of a stronger increase. And on the infrastructure, I would say, but that is a European perspective. We have a very dynamic and in many parts already open market and dynamic market-driven rollout. And I think here you have a strong link between the fleet and the infrastructure. So in those markets where we have a strong fleet increase, we also see a strong infrastructure increase. So it's a bit like hooked. Where we should be a bit careful is to look only at absolute numbers, because we've seen in the last sort of years that we've seen an increasing number of fast chargers, and fast chargers can of course host much more vehicles than regular slow chargers, which is why we from the Commission rather look now at the total power capacity that is installed. That is the important factor to look at, not so much whether it is 3 million or 3.5 million, because 3 million can be better than 3.5 if you have a much higher share of fast chargers than the 3 million.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I don't know if Emra want to add something. He left. Yeah.
So, Jean-Charles, just to make clear, so you don't have the right to be lost as a coordinator of DevOps projects.
No. I mean, I'm talking. I mean, I'm reporting what I see. But even as coordinator of this project, we bring new solution. But first, they will be here very soon and cheap, and then we will address the market. But still, and this is battery electric vehicle. But what we see on the market, these are these different fuel solutions, right? And which one to choose, right? And which one, what we have now available, I think people are just waiting. That was my point. And this is why this year, really the last number, for the first quarter, we see that it doesn't increase as before, right? It goes down. And particularly in Switzerland, I'm Swiss, right? So in Switzerland, we had that numbers, but they also said that in EU, it was also the same figures for the moment, but they may change, of course. I mean, we need to look at the whole year, right? That's always the same.
We just plan to give a chance to the citizens to share, to rent and share these vehicles and to see them for themselves.
Okay. Then maybe for Eric, the accessibility. I mean, you focus on the accessibility of the electric charging station. I guess it's the same problematic if you have a hydrogen station, right? You need also to do. I mean, I would say that what you presented can be, transported to other type of energy charging, right? And then your solution. Your solution is a plan now, but do you have an idea in the process of really be introduced in Australia in your country, right? What you propose, which is very interesting.
The idea is very universal. So
yeah, exactly.
When the Anti-Discrimination Act under President Carter in the USA came into life, everybody was balking at, oh, now all schools need to be accessible. Right? And now all schools, of course, need to be accessible. Everybody says, of course. But the EV charging stations and other charging stations are being rolled out, not accessible. How many of your 380 charging stations are accessible?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's a good question.
That is the mindset, and that is a universal problem. And you shouldn't be building inaccessible infrastructure. But because of the business model is slightly different from fuel, so people go for the cheap option. And that's why we are working with the government. So you need to have guidelines, and that's outside of our scope, but probably the government should chip in to make sure that that business model gets right.
Okay, then thank you very much. I think now we overpass the time. So thank you very much for the speakers. I think we try to bring, let's say, an overview and some discussion about the challenge that are ahead of us. And by coming at the World Congress, you will, of course, understand much more, and you will be able to discuss with the experts as well. So I pass now the floor to Rita. Right?
Yes, thank you very much, Jean-Charles. And indeed, thank you to our speakers and thank you for the audience. I think it was a fascinating discussion this afternoon, and you can only hear and see more of this, some of the solutions that will be there in Dubai. I'm sorry we couldn't answer all your questions. If you do have questions, please reach out to us via email or through our website, and we'll try to get back in touch with you. On that note, please, again, a reminder to follow us on our website, our newsletter, and LinkedIn. And I also want to thank my colleague Joanna, who's organized this webinar, and hope to see you all in Dubai.